We're here live from the Oregon Coast Aquarium. We're going to have a special interview today with two of their stars, California brown pelicans. Before we introduce the birds, I'd like to introduce you to CJ. CJ, what do you do here at the Oregon Coast Aquarium?
Hi, I'm the curator of birds here at the aquarium.
That's awesome. What does a curator of birds do?
Basically oversees the management and the care of our bird collection.
That's wonderful. So I see two members of your bird collection right over your shoulder. Could you tell me a little bit about these pelicans, what species they are, and where they're from?
Right. So these are California brown pelicans. They're two females, and they found themselves in trouble a couple of years ago and landed in the wildlife rehab center of the North Coast up in Astoria with injuries, and those injuries were not able to be repaired enough for them to be released into the wild, and so they came here, and they each have individual stories. So Ren, one of the girls, actually came into the rehabilitation center entangled in fishing line, and so the fishing line was so tight that she lost blood circulation. The injury wasn't able to be repaired, and she had to have an amputation. So that means she wasn't able to be released into the wild because she couldn't fend for herself out there in terms of getting away from predators or migrating. So she needed a forever home under human care. Jojo had a shoulder injury, which could have come from a natural plunge dive, because brown pelicans have a special ability to dive from 60 feet in the air and plunge into the water to chase schooling fish. And you can imagine diving that fast from that high up could be dangerous if the wind picks up or the waves pick up at the wrong time. And so she had a shoulder injury, but unfortunately she was not able to meet the release criteria, and so she also wasn't able to be released into the wild.
Well, so now that they're here at the Oregon Coast Aquarium, it seems like, do they get to hang out by the pool all day, or do they have a job here?
Right. So we did try to make a really happy habitat for them, giving them all the things that they need to be healthy back here. But one of the main focuses we have with them here at the aquarium is being ambassadors. So we really wanted to bring them out to meet the public. And so we started working with them right away, building a trusting relationship. And we were able to teach them to come out onto a stage where they get to do a training session with the keepers, and the public gets to see that, and we get to talk about how amazing these animals are, and hopefully inspire people to want to take care of the environment to protect animals like our pelicans.
Well, speaking of taking care of animals, I know that some of the behaviors that they learn actually help you guys take care of them.
Absolutely. So when you're taking care of animals, you want to be able to give them as healthy an experience as possible. If they're injured, you need to bring a vet in and look at them. The more things that you can teach them that allow you to get close to them or examine them means less stress when it's time to have a doctor look at you. And so teaching husbandry behaviors is a really important part of taking care of them. So we actually have that relationship where we can train behaviors that allow us to get close to them or move them from area to area, so that we can better have access to them when we need to.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. And I know you just said taking care of them, which made me think about, I know I mentioned their pool, but in all seriousness, they have a habitat back here, and it looks like they have some enrichment activities, which I'm just going to pan over to. So what are these for?
So we have lots of different items that we can bring into the exhibit to change up their habitat so they can investigate new things. We like them to be able to explore natural behaviors. So behind you even, we have a bunch of branches and sticks that the birds have been picking up and making makeshift nests with during this time of year. They've been playing with some of those branches. The different toys we bring in are again meant for them to look at the different things in their environment, changing up their furniture, and giving them the opportunity to utilize their natural behaviors.
Well, and natural behavior, so you talked about an injury from a plunge dive. So how do pelicans capture the food they eat, and what kind of food do they eat in the wild?
So all pelicans, including the brown pelican, have the ability to paddle on the surface of the water and dunk their heads and scoop up fish and and water in their bills, and their pouches are amazing. They can expand to hold up to 3 gallons of water, and then they're going to lean their head forward, drain that water out, and then swallow the fish whole.
Wow.
So even though these girls can't plunge dive, they don't have to do that just to get food. So here at the aquarium, we prepare their food for them. We hand toss it directly to them, always making sure they have an appropriate amount of tasty herring is what we feed them here, and so that they have the appropriate body condition and weight.
Well, and so now that they're here, people get to learn a lot about the California brown pelicans, but do they get to learn what to do when they find an injured bird or pelican or see a bird that causes them concern?
That's a great question. So in our messaging, we try to explain the different injuries that these birds encountered, the success story of the California brown pelican coming from near extinction to being really taken off the federal endangered list, but also something like wren and how marine debris can cause obvious injury to animals, just like Wren's story. And so giving them a direct thing to focus on, like looking for fishing line when they're out walking on the beaches, is a great way that they can relate marine debris to a direct animal, and hopefully will remind them to help bring that debris off if they find it. And in fishing line, you can dispose of it in these special recycling units, or even just getting it off the beach will help animals like Wren and JoJo.
That's great. I think, with the Fish and Wildlife Service, we really appreciate getting to partner with folks like the Oregon Coast Aquarium, especially when we're talking about endangered species or success stories like formerly endangered species. Thank you for having us out there here today. I know there are some folks who've joined us live on Facebook who are watching right now, so if you have any questions, we would love to take these right now. Oh, we've got one, and somebody asked, what did you study to get this job?
I actually went to university for a zoology degree long time ago.
And did you always work at the aquarium, or have you had other career experiences?
I've had other career experiences. My first zoo job was up in Tacoma at the Point Defiance Zoo and Aquarium. I'm from Washington. I did get an experience of working overseas in the United Arab Emirates, breeding Houbara bustards. You'll have to look that one up.
I was going to say, what kind of species is that?
It's a bird species. Super cool.
That's wonderful. I'm watching them. Are they taking care of their wings in the background, or what kind of behavior are they exhibiting?
So one of the pelicans, JoJo, is preening. So it's important to take care of your feathers, making sure they're in tip-top shape. So she's preening her wing, and Wren behind her has tucked her head under her wing to take a little nap after her last presentation.
It can be a lot, I know. I feel the same way sometimes after presentations. How often a day do they do their presentations here at the zoo?
Since Memorial Day, they've started doing them 2 times a day. So since they started their presentations, we've been doing 1 presentation a day. All last summer they did that and got really comfortable with meeting the public and the fact that the crowd size changes and that there's applause, and really we wanted to make sure that the birds were comfortable and choosing to do this act. So when they come out to do presentations, if they're not really feeling it, or if anything startles them, or they're full or whatever, they can always head down the path and come home. So we want to make that a positive experience for them.
That's really, well, speaking of going home, somebody just asked, what do they eat and how much?
So in the wild, pelicans are going to eat foraging fish. Here we feed them mostly small herring, and they only eat about 1 pound a day, our birds, to keep a healthy weight. In the wild, if they're going to be flying more, using more energy, they might eat a bit more than that.
Yeah. Well, somebody else just mentioned that it looks like you really enjoy your job. Do you think that's accurate?
Yes, absolutely.
I know earlier we were talking a little bit about the opportunity to get to train these birds, but do you form a relationship with them?
Absolutely. We take care of a lot of different birds here at the aquarium. So we have a big outdoor seabird aviary that has about 90 birds that are in the puffin family. But because there's no barrier between public and those birds, we don't try to train them. We don't want them getting too close to public and putting either of them at risk. But when we have birds in a separate separate area, we were able to really spend some time getting to know them and creating those relationships. The first thing we had to do was let them know that humans were okay and that we were bringing food, we were doing fun things, and so we've been able to develop these relationships and really see their different personalities and get close to them, and that's been a very fun part of our job.
That's awesome. You're inspiring lots of questions. So somebody asked a question about them being returned to the wild, and I thought maybe we could revisit that in terms of their being rehabbed birds.
Right. So whenever you have birds that are found injured in the wild and they do manage to come to a rehabilitation facility, always the goal is to get them back out into the wild. But you don't want to do that if they can't take care of themselves. So if they are too comfortable with humans, that could be a bad situation. They might get themselves into dangerous situations getting too close to people. If they can't fly or they can't take care of themselves, that's not going to be a good situation. So in the case of our two pelicans, they both had injuries that made them unable to fly. So that meant that they couldn't be released into the wild, because it's important for them to fly to get away from predators and to migrate to the appropriate areas in the right time of year.
Thank you. So because they're California brown pelicans and they live on the coast and in the ocean, somebody asked if that pool back there is full of fresh water or salt water.
Their pool is actually salt water. We're lucky here at the aquarium that we can pull water from the bay. So we bring water in from the bay. It goes through filters and comes into our pool nice and clean. So the birds get a perfect saltwater pool to swim in.
Wonderful. And I think this is probably our last question, unless I see folks watching have anything else. So we have California brown pelicans we're talking about today, but you mentioned the other birds that are at the Oregon Coast Aquarium. And so I would ask, what kind of birds can people see here, and do they represent the kind of birds you can see on the Oregon coast?
Right, so California brown pelicans, you can see them in the summer times. You'll see them flying in a line above the waves as they migrate north and hang out a little bit in the summer, and hopefully are migrating south in the fall. We have a pair of turkey vultures that people don't always associate with the coast, but they certainly are here. They come up in March generally and head back in October to Central and South America, and are helping purify our coastal ecosystems. And then all the puffins and their relatives that we have in the aviary can be seen off our coast this time of year during breeding season. But what's amazing about that group of birds is that when it's the non-breeding season, they're far offshore, and so you wouldn't see them unless you're far out on a boat.
Well, for those of you who can't come to the Oregon Coast Aquarium to visit with these birds and the other animals they have here, you can always visit a national wildlife refuge along the Oregon coast, where you'll find these nesting seabirds like the puffins who nest at Haystack Rock each year. So we just want to thank you so much, CJ, and we want to thank our pelican friends for being with us today and partnering with the Fish and Wildlife Service. Thank you so much, CJ, and the Oregon Coast Aquarium.
My pleasure. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody who joined us. Say bye.
Bye.
Bye to the pelicans.
Bye, Jojo.